The crowning achievement of Giannis's career, leading Greece to the bronze medal. Where do we rank that? And what were some other interesting takeaways from EuroBasket? Camille and I get into it coming up next on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into Locked On Bucks. I am Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. You can hear me throughout the season, which is rapidly approaching on the Bucks Radio Network. You can find Camille as one of our analysts on the Locked On NBA show, on the Technical Foul podcast as well, and wherever you get your Packers podcasts. Today's episode of the show brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. So last week we had the lead up to the conclusion of EuroBasket and said Giannis and Greece could medal for the first time in, was it 16 years?
16 years, yep.
Yeah. And they did. So let's just get that out of the way. A bronze medal. We were talking before we started recording about the final two games that were recorded. I sat through all that game against Turkey, and you just felt bad because there's a lot of talent on that Turkey team, and they boat raced Greece to move on to the gold medal game. But Greece and Giannis bounce back and take down Finland to win the bronze medal now. And I guess one of the places to start, Camille, is after the game, we saw a very emotional Giannis, who once again went live on Instagram, and you could see the emotion pouring out of him with his brothers there, and said, this is it. This is the crowning achievement of his career, which I think some Bucks fans will look at and say, like, really?
Yeah.
Really? Not what happened 4 years ago. But I get it for Giannis. When you know the story of Giannis's journey and the fact that he led this country that took him and his family in when they were seeking refuge to a medal, something they haven't done in nearly 2 decades. And he got to do it with two of his brothers. I know he got to experience a championship with Thanasis, though he wasn't on the court. But he got to do this with his brothers. And that I look at it and I say, yeah, I fine, perfectly fine with me. There's no issue with him saying this ranks higher than winning an NBA championship.
Yeah, not to me either. I think it's one of those situations where I can understand, like, winning NBA championship meant a lot to Giannis. We saw how much he put into it. We know how much he wants to win
consistently. Yeah, that he wants to get back there.
We know that about him, but we also know that when it comes to representing Greece, that's something that he takes pride in. That's something that hits his soul in a different way because it's representing where he came from. And he talked about part of what made the championship in Milwaukee feel so special. And he talked about unifying a city, unifying a region, of seeing the thousands and thousands of people who came out to support this team, and everyone was together. And he loved that unity factor of it. Well, now we're talking about an entire country with millions of people that he's able to unify through the game of basketball. And hearing him talk after the game, being emotional about it, I was happy for him. I was proud of him in that moment. And even hearing him say, like, I don't like being famous. Like, I just like playing basketball, and everything else that comes with it is what comes with it. But this moment here of medaling for this country, unifying millions of people. And on top of that, you mentioned it's a country that him and his family took refuge in. I mean, they spent years before he became an NBA player being fearful of being found out, and all of the trust issues that they had with other people, and just living in that environment of really scraping to get by. And now he is somebody who the entire country can point to as like just a hero of the sport, of like, hey, you helped us medal, something we haven't done in 16 years. And I love to see that Giannis is getting this hardware during his run with the national team, because he's been at the peak of his powers in the NBA for some years, and it hasn't translated to the international success I know that he's been wanting for Greece. So to see him get this medal, I was happy. I am happy for him. Like, I love that for him. And I took no offense to hearing him say this is the greatest accomplishment, because I understand what he had to go through to get there.
And accomplishment too is the next segue here, the natural segue, because we talked about leading up to the medal games, the dominance that Giannis was displaying in this tournament, and statistically, he arguably had the best. Dennis Schroeder wins the MVP of it, and by the way, Germany wins the gold medal, taking down Turkey, and Dennis Schroeder, a big part of that. I believe he was the leading assist man throughout the tournament, but Giannis was the second leading scorer, and that just behind Luka Doncic, who played same amount of games, but Giannis averaged just over 27 points per game. Luka averaged just under 35. But rebounds, I believe Giannis was number 2 in total rebounds and second in average as well. Alperen Şengün, which we'll get into that, was the number 1 rebounder throughout the tournament. Up and down the list here, he's near the top in every single category. No surprise. It's what we see at the NBA level as well. But there was one thing that stood out to me above every other stat. And you mentioned this on a show that we did somewhat recently, Camille. Giannis finished the tournament with just 6 blocks in 7 games. That was nowhere near the lead on Team Greece.
I mean, Kostas had 4 in 1 game.
The witness here. But yes, Kostas Antetokounmpo more than doubled up Giannis with 13 blocked shots to lead Greece. And I believe that was the second most throughout the entire tournament. So that was one of the other takeaways in watching these games. And you were the first one that I heard pointed out too, of like, you watch these and it just kind of dawns on you of like, oh, so Kostas is a big now, just like his brother.
Yeah, like a true big. He didn't really fill it up offensively, but that wasn't the role that he was called for on this particular team. And seeing him on the court next to Giannis, that's one of the first things that I react to, is like, man, like him and Giannis are like size wise. If Kostas is a little bit bigger than him at this point, height wise. And that just kind of was like, man, like, because when I think about him, like, of course I think of like the Lakers championship and things like that, but I still see him as that kid who came to
Wait a minute.
Milwaukee.
You think about the Lakers championship?
I do. He was the first. I think about that because I'm like, he got the championship first in the family. So like,
first 2 players that come to mind, Kostas and Kyle Kuzma, when I think about that Lakers championship.
See, I didn't even think about Kuz, which is crazy right now, but this is not about Kuz in this moment. It is about the Antetokounmpos. And no, but for real, seeing him out there was kind of like a cool moment. And the amount of time you saw him share the floor with Giannis, and even with the Nasses too, with all 3 of them out there. Every time I saw all 3 of the Antetokounmpos on the court, it was a moment of just like, man, this is super cool. And they were contributing to Greece's success on top of that too. It wasn't just a family name and you're out here just because of this. Like, they were contributing to this team. And as you mentioned, Kostas played a role. That defense really stood out in this tournament for me from him.
Yeah. Curious to see how much he can continue to fine tune that. And if there's eventually a role as a defensive player. I think that the tricky part with that is 5 to 7 years ago, I would have told you like, yeah, like build on what you showed in EuroBasket and you can find a home. You can find a role in the NBA as a defensive big. But, you know, as we talked about throughout the course of the summer too, and the importance of the Bucks kind of modernizing their approach, is the modern approach is not really one-way players. You have to have a value on both ends of the floor. So certainly love what you've seen defensively from Kostas, but developing that offensive side is going to be the bigger part for him to find an NBA landing spot eventually. It brings us to go back a little bit, the game between Giannis and Greece and Turkey and some of the comments leading up to and coming out of it and the statistical performance. So what to make of that? Camille and I will share our thoughts on Giannis versus Alperen Şengün coming up next. NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You'll love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Whether it's player props, building the same game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds, it makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy team. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. So Giannis and Greece versus Alperen Şengün and Turkey. We kind of knew it was headed to this, and you looked at the roster for the Turkish national team and said, frankly, look, there's a lot more talent on that group than there is Greece. There was what I believe 6, maybe 7 NBA players or players that were at one time in the NBA. Far cry from where Greece is at, and we saw a dominant performance. 94-68 was the final score, and it was one of those games as you were watching it early. I believe the margin was kind of hanging around like 7 or 8 throughout most of the first quarter, and then Greece just let go of the rope, and you could see this is not looking good here. They were outscored by 8 in the second quarter. By then, the damage was done. It was double digits at halftime, and it was over. It was above 30 at one point a couple of times in that game. But the big emphasis in this one was on Giannis versus Alperen Şengün for the positional matchup. And as we mentioned, some of the comments that were soon to follow and led up to the matchup. Alperen Şengün finished with 15 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, did have 5 turnovers, though, and a blocked shot. We mentioned the statistical dominance that Giannis had throughout this tournament. This was not that same performance. This was far and away the worst performance that Giannis had throughout the tournament. He was a team high minus 30 in the plus minus, scored just 12 points, a very inefficient 6 of 13 from the field for the guy who also didn't mention led the tournament in field goal efficiency and shot just 46%. 20 percentage points below what he averaged for the tournament. Did get 12 rebounds, did have 5 assists, but also had 5 turnovers, much like Alperen Şengün. So all in all, it was a very forgettable game and a forgettable performance for Giannis. But it goes back to the comments that we alluded to, Camille, and we'll get to Alperen Şengün's comments. I mean, I would assume anybody listening to this has seen or heard them. But Alperen Şengün said Giannis is one of the best players in the world, and we just try to help. We think we did a good job of that. He's not a great passer. He's an amazing player, but he's not a great passer. So we're just trying to help and keep him close to the paint. And Alperen Şengün may be the first player we've heard put that on paper with he's great, but he's not a great passer. We have a number of former Bucks teammates that we can point to and current teammates of Giannis who have quickly said, one of the surprising things, he's an underrated passer, and his passing ability is what stood out most to me. Here's where it gets tricky. Is Giannis Nikola Jokic? No. Is Giannis a bad passer? No. We can dig into all the numbers. Like, one of the things we point to quite a bit is the points created off of assists, and Giannis is routinely among the league leaders there. You can say, well, it's an easy drive and kick style. Fine, but we have definitely seen the growth from Giannis as a playmaker and passer throughout his career. When you see Alperen Şengün say he's not a great passer, I guess, what's your take on that? And how did you respond when you saw those post-game comments?
Yeah, when I saw the comments, my first thought was like, okay, what's a great passer? Like, what is the bar that he is saying as this is a great passer? Because my initial reaction of it was, this man, Giannis, is so dominant when it comes to getting to the rim, when it comes to all these other aspects of his offensive game. We know teams will let him shoot a bit, but the mid-range is becoming a thing that teams are actually starting to respect with him. So, we get all that. And we've heard other teams mention, hey, if we can get the ball out of Giannis's hands, that's a win. We'd rather his teammates beat us than Giannis beat us. We've seen other teams have that exact same mentality before. So to see him say he's not a great passer, like I said, my first thought was, okay, then what's a great passer? Because he's not a bad one. It's not a bad one at all. If anything, like you said, I think the passing is a bit underrated for his game, but he's not someone else like who's averaged 8 assists a game or anything like that. We know his career high is 6.5, which he hit, I believe, this year and last year in consecutive years. So like we know he can pass, but when people think of Giannis, it's not where they first go. And I think this upcoming season is going to be one of those ones with the ball in his hands a little bit more where maybe he does show people in that. And Giannis, even in his response, mentioned like, I'm not one for getting into it verbally. I'm not going to go back and forth. My play speaks for itself. Like we will see what it is. So then that leads to my second thought, which was, when do the Bucks play the Rockets again? Because I need to circle this date on the calendar to see what Giannis does when he's matched up against Şengün. So it's one like it didn't bother me. It was just kind of like okay, we're gonna see how you feel about that at the end of this upcoming season. And when do y'all play again? Because I got to see this game.
Giannis you mentioned the general tone of it, but Giannis's quote after the game, I'm a guy that I don't want to talk a lot. I let my game talk. I'm going into my 13th season in the NBA. I won everything, everything. And this was the thing that I hadn't won, this being EuroBasket. And I won. I have an incredible family. I think I have incredible people that support me every single day. I've built incredible relationships, and I love to carry myself that way. So very similar to a lot of the like season ending tones that we've heard from Giannis as well of like, look, I don't care. I know what the bigger picture is. I know I've been very successful throughout my career too. So fine, say whatever you want to say. And I've seen a few people too push back with the defensive. He didn't say he was a bad passer. He just said he's not great. Like, no, we know what when words are coded, and when you say he's not a great passer, it's a cowardly way of saying he's not that good at it.
Like I'm not worried about the passing from him.
Right. Like you guys talk about him being this, he's actually not that good. So yeah, it is one of those things that you immediately jump to and you say, look, Alperen Şengün won this round, right? The Turkish national team won the game. They did so in convincing fashion. Şengün had a better statistical game than Giannis, so fine. Talk your talk in that sense, but no, there will be other games on the horizon. And your question of, okay, when do they play again? Relatively quickly, when the Houston Rockets come to Milwaukee and play the Bucks November 9th in, I believe that's a Saturday afternoon. It's an afternoon game. So we get an early look at Giannis versus Şengün, round number 2. And look, that game was already going to have a decent amount of intrigue because it's a Rockets team that's on the come up, and you added Kevin Durant in the offseason. It's a Sunday afternoon, by the way, but you add Kevin Durant to the mix. Now you get this as well, that this is going to be a very anticipated game. This isn't going to be like Bucks versus Pacers and Miles Turner returning to Indy or anything like that, but this is one of those now of the question we asked in the survey of what game are you most looking forward to or what would you like to attend? This is still not going to top Chris Middleton. That was far and away the number one, the opener for Chris's return. This one would be neck and neck with those Pacers games, given the state of where Indiana is, I think.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love a game where there's a little bit more at stake? When someone's talking a little trash to you, and everybody, if you've competed in anything, I don't care if it's basketball, a video game, cards, spades, Uno, whatever it is, when you have that person across from you that's doubting you, that's talking a little crazy, if you have an ultra competitive mindset, that helps to fuel you. So like for me, knowing how Giannis is wired and understanding him being like, well, you know, check my YouTube. Like you can YouTube me and see those clips of me passing the ball. Like November 9th, like you said, a afternoon game, 2:30 start for the Bucks. First time you see the Rockets, and they're going to be in Milwaukee. That is the first time of a back-to-back because the Bucks do have the Mavericks in Dallas the next night, which is also a Monday night football game. Eagles and Packers.
Say, even better news. Yeah, you don't have to worry about shared interest.
Yeah, you don't. Like that Rocket game is going to be like preferred viewing, I think, in the Milwaukee area because there is no conflicting game going on at that time for that one. And it's going to be one of those ones I think afterwards people are going to be very curious to hear what Şengün has to say about Giannis's game.
And I believe, is that one of their national games?
The
Rockets game.
Rockets game? I can't recall that.
Well, we'll check into it. We'll take a look during the break here. The fact that it's a Sunday afternoon game and it's those two, it's Giannis and that team makes me wonder, but we'll get an answer on that. And then wrap things up with a few interesting discussions. Like, number one, did we learn anything that we can carry into the season, good or potentially bad, from Greece's performance and Giannis's performance in EuroBasket? Our old friend Malcolm Brogdon has found a new home. And something I'm going to throw at you, Camille, a new idea, yet another new idea for All-Star Game. We'll get into that coming up after this. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade with 5-Hour Energy. Their shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce package packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee. Plus, you get B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most about 5-Hour Energy is how portable they are. Big-time taste, tiny shot, big-time energy as well. You can take it with you anywhere you go when you need that extra boost. I've told you many times, I keep several of them on me in my backpack during all Bucks games. I'm personally partial to the grape flavor and the pomegranate as well. Tastes like you're drinking a juice, but you're getting those flavor and nutrients to keep you going throughout whatever it is you got going that day. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store and online at 5hourenergy.com. That's the number 5, hourenergy.com. Go there or get your 5-Hour Energy on Amazon today. So, I think we've oftentimes been accused of being a little too positive and not projecting doom and gloom, which I know a majority of the audience and the feedback we got certainly loves. Of like, I get enough of that elsewhere in the world and with basketball and Bucks coverage, especially from the national media. So I'm perfectly fine with you just giving me the good things. But, well, I'm not going to lead the witness this time, Camille. Watching Giannis's performance throughout the tournament, did you have any takeaways that you think would carry over into this season? If no, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, my main takeaway wasn't anything that we saw him running out there of like, hey, the Bucks should actually go out here and run this, because Greece did utilize Giannis a bit differently than the Bucks intend to. A lot of the actions weren't necessarily through Giannis, at least during the start of the tournament as well. You did see at times later in the tournament where they did just lean into the advantage of put the ball in Giannis's hand and kind of let him create a bit. But so my main takeaway wasn't anything like X's and O's necessarily, but more so of thinking back in the past years when Giannis has competed in international play, and what he said that has done for like his off-season training for NBA basketball. So for me, it was thinking like, one, glad that, he made it through healthy, happy, medaled, and can't wait to see how this applies to what he brings to the NBA, because it seems like those summers where international play is at stake, Giannis comes into that season really, really ready to go, because you're playing high-level basketball in the offseason, and that helps you get prepared for the grinds of an NBA year.
Yeah, I loved the efficiency. We continue to see more of that, that turnaround mid-range jumper from him. I agree with your points too on Giannis playing international games coming out of that end of the season, what we've typically traditionally seen from him. So by and large, my takeaways were positive, and I didn't have anything of like, oh, it'd be nice to see this, and I wish he played this way. Yeah. The only other takeaway that I had that I think,
Well, I got to hear it. The pause is making me like, oh, what is it?
Filing away and like, let's just keep an eye on this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll preface by saying this. The Bucks roster is very different from that Team Greece roster. Like, again, going up in that Turkey game, even some of the, what we just came out of, and I don't want to extend Giannis versus Alperen Şengün, but even some of that discourse, he started to see things like, oh, Giannis isn't really looking to pass to his teammates, and like he's trying to force things against those teams. And like my counter to that would be, I mean, no disrespect here, but look at the roster Giannis is playing with, and look at what he's going up against in Turkey and would have been in Germany and some of these other teams. So like, if he is in fact forcing things more, I get it, fine, but it's not an apples to apples comparison. But we did see, hey, you can have this magical run and like you can surprise people and start to build some momentum and play well, but ultimately, talent matters.
Yeah.
And when you were a Giannis-centric team trying to figure out who's the second best player on this team, they struggled against the elite teams. So, again, there is much more talent on the Bucks roster than there is on Team Grease. But I think if you're a skeptic of this roster construction and the talent and some of the questions we said too of like, well, who's going to be the second best player? Who's going to make the biggest jump? You would point to this and say, look, Giannis was great.
Yeah.
But you need somebody else to bail you out in those spots when you're going up against those best teams. And that's more to do with what is the ceiling of this team, which I think we all collectively have said, like, probably a second round team. But you know, that game against Turkey, if you are a skeptic, that's what you're going to point to and say, see, I don't know if this is going to work.
Yeah, and I think that's fair because a lot of what I think that the optimism for Bucks fans and even for management comes in is assuming that you're going to get some guys here who get a larger opportunity this upcoming season and make the most of it. Like, I think the Bucks are counting on some guys to take a jump from what you saw last year, if not at the very bare minimum, provide what you did last season. During those stretches when there was no Dame playing basketball. So again, like you've mentioned how Kevin Porter Jr. is a player that has a really, really high ceiling. And the floor is kind of like, you don't really know where the floor is because we saw him with the Clippers last year. We saw him with the Bucks, much better performance in the Bucks jersey than we saw in the Clippers uniform, but it was in the exact same season. So like, is the Bucks version of him that we saw real? Is the clip like what are you going to get from Kevin Porter Jr.? But if he does hit the heights that are projected to be, where he could be somebody who's like, come all-star time, maybe not somebody who makes the all-star team, but a name that's thrown like, hey, like just consider what Kevin Porter Jr. has done. And you know, like we've seen him do it in Houston before when he was younger. You've seen those guys, Gary Trent Jr.
Well, we personally saw it in
Houston. We personally saw it. We saw him drop it on Drew Holiday's head at that. So like we know what he can do. It's just like the consistency of it. So yeah, there's things to point to of being like, hey, if no one else pops, like it can end up being a very long season. But I think the Bucks are hoping for like, hey, we got some guys that we really do believe are ready to take a next step. Plus, we do have Miles Turner next to Giannis, who is going to be able to form a formidable defensive duo there.
Yeah, and I'm not that skeptic. There is much more talent on the Bucks roster than there was on Team Greece outside of Giannis. So like that is a big thing you cannot discount. But I do think there's going to be some that look at this and say like, I mean, it's largely constructed the same way where it's, and also the one thing to point out, the offense isn't the same, where we've talked about Giannis playing more as a traditional big in international play than just, not to say he's never played point guard or never has the ball, but not as much as we expect to see at the NBA level. But it is one of those things that you look at and you say, okay, it's really important that we see consistency and growth from the rest of this roster. And I think the bigger question, which is not so much for you or I, as you know, people who are not going to pretend to closely follow international play outside of the Olympics and these types of tournaments, but it more has to do with expectations. Which of those two teams had loftier expectations coming into their season or tournament, Team Greece or where the Bucks currently are at? Because I think there's been a level setting here, and I think there's, not in a bad way, just tempered expectations for this team. Excitement to see a different version of the Bucks, but like, let's realistically say we need a lot to break in our favor to make a charge here. A couple other pieces of housekeeping here. Malcolm Brogdon signs with the New York Knicks. Very interesting. So what does that do and mean for Deuce McBride, who had been kind of the catalyst for their second unit? I think Malcolm Brogdon is an ideal second point guard to give you a very, very solid 15, 18, 20, depending on the game, minutes off the bench of leading your offense. So a nice piece of business there for the New York Knicks. They're in a similar spot to the Bucks, though, where I don't recall if Brogdon's deal is this, but like Brogdon, they brought back Landry Shamet too, where I think they have 3 guys that are fighting over one open roster spot going into camp. But good for the Knicks, bad for the Knicks. I made nothing of it when you saw the news for Malcolm Brogdon.
Yeah, it was kind of like okay, Malcolm, like good for you. Like Malcolm Brogdon is still one of those guys for me after his tenure with the Bucks where I cheer for Malcolm Brogdon going forward. But he is somebody, as we know, over the last few years in particular, like the health just hasn't necessarily been there for him. Like he had a pretty decent showing in that regards when he was in Boston. But again,
in an ideal role.
Yeah, that's the thing with Malcolm Brogdon is the injury concerns. Like you look back once he was traded from the Bucks to the Pacers, he played in 54 games that first year with the Pacers, which also should be said was the COVID shortened year. So numbers are a little bit different there.
So he missed, about 16 games.
Then the following year, 56 games. Then the following year, his last with Indiana, 36 games. That first year with Boston, his only year with Boston, he played 67. And then with Portland last year, or 2 years ago, 39. Last year with Washington, 24. The Washington one, who really knows what those numbers would have been if there was a team really competing for a championship. So I will give him that. But that's the thing with Malcolm Brogdon that you just kind of have to think about, because when he's on the court, he's a great floor general. He can do a lot of things for you one off the bench, but the health concerns with Brogdon are a big flag for him.
Yeah. He was a guy too that, for whatever reason, his rookie season, he was, I believe that was my second year working with the Bucks. And, it was an improving Bucks team, but it wasn't a great Bucks team. And, for whatever reason, he was the guy that whether it be at practice or trying to find somebody to tape a pregame interview for our radio broadcast, it was always just like, well, take Malcolm. Like you can have Malcolm or John Henson. Like those were the two that would get thrown at you the most. So I must have interviewed Malcolm Brogdon 20 times that year for your just like brief, quick interviews. And like each time he came away more and more like, this guy is impressive for being a rookie here and how he carries himself. And I'll never forget the series against that was the Celtics, I believe, right? The Celtics here that they played in the first round and lost in 7 games. Interviewing him for just about every one of those games where listeners had to be like, enough of Malcolm Brogdon already. But talking to him after the series about Rookie of the Year and like, hey, what do you think? Because I don't know how you felt, Camille. I think we were all like, well, at least Malcolm's getting mentioned. I don't think he's going to win it, though. That was my viewpoint. And he did. And hearing him when I asked him about it just gave like a 7-minute answer on, I fully expect to win it. And here's why, because of this, this, and this. My numbers match this. Here's how I approach the game. Even if these other guys had numbers that jumped off the page, consistency, availability, all of that, where it was like, wow, all right, you won me over and you're the Rookie of the Year. And then as we found out about a month later, he won it. So always one of those guys that you root for, to your point. And then once Dave Kane started calling our games too, every single Virginia guy, he has a relationship with. And that was one of the first guys we talked about of like, hey, what do you guys think of Malcolm when he was here? And just sharing stories of everything that he's done with him and how he got to know him and just how great of a guy Malcolm Brogdon is. So yes, you're happy to see him continue to carry on his career. Could have done without it being the New York Knicks, but congrats to Malcolm Brogdon. Last thing I have for you as we start to wrap here. Are you a boxing fan?
I'm not a boxing fan, but I do tune in when it's a big fight. So like I watched Crawford and Canelo this weekend, even though
Did you make it through the whole thing?
No, it started watching me by the 10th round, but I did wake up in the morning to finish it.
Didn't start until like 11:30 or something.
It was so late. I was
Actually,
like,
yeah.
what is this?
I tried, and then I had to do the same thing and see who won the next morning. But like just getting that fight atmosphere where fires come out, you got this guy in this corner and everything else, the build up and anticipation, it got me to thinking of like this all-star format doesn't work. Like, let's just be real with ourselves and say it's a weekend for fans and sponsors. We're not even going to play a game. We're going to do the 3-point shootout dunk contest. We'll do something else, but like we're not even doing a game because you guys don't care. And we've tried to do this over and over. And then also maybe the whole like take it away, and then players like wait, we'll try. We promise we'll try next year. Maybe that'll work. I don't think so. So let's just move on to plan at this point. What given how many times they've changed it? What about this, Camille? We don't have a game. We have a fight. That is a debate, not a physical fight. It's a debate.
Oh man! All right, okay.
You got one guy in each corner, and it is Mark Cuban versus Pablo Torre, and you just go back and forth. Where Pablo reveals more documents, you just wait for Mark Cuban to continue to dig himself a hole, or give him more rope to hang himself, and we just get a verbal sparring over what in God's name happened with the Clippers. It's televised. That's our all-star game on Sunday night.
I tell you what, Steve Ballmer ain't gonna go for that, given that game's gonna be
Steve Ballmer's in the corner of Mark Cuban.
Right. He's like, hold on, y'all. Not in my arena. Not in my arena will this fight take place. But no, I mean, to your point, the All-Star game has again switched formats. We're now going to continue that round robin format we saw last year that the Rising Stars has been doing. 3 teams instead of 4. No Rising Stars team this time to come and be on the big stage with the big dogs. You'll have 2 teams of USA players and 1 international team, and you'll play the games that way. And I mean, part of why Silver keeps doing this because the players aren't giving the effort. So he keeps thinking, if I change the format, maybe this will spur more competition. And I'll say this, if this format does not spur more competition where the game is more, if it's not more competitive, just take it back to East versus West and like, just call it one.
Honestly, just end it.
Just
like we've tried taking it back to East versus West. We've tried players drafting their teams. We've tried everything. So just end it if that's the case. And
if the players don't want to do it, it's not going to get done. Like that's what it comes down to.
I get there's money attached to the All-Star game. So that's why they can't just up and end it. But like that's the next step. It's not like, well, let's go back to East versus West or let's try this. Like you have literally tried everything. And players and I think fans have showed you like, we don't care. We've told you enough. Like, we don't care about this event. We're already starting to lose interest in All-Star Saturday because of what that's kind of devolved into. So, I struggle to see how this is going to be a needle mover and how this is going to be something that gets investment and buy-in from what was it last year where we heard the leaked reporting that Adam Silver had the meeting with the players before the game, kind of like when your parents would tell you before going into church, like, make sure you don't do like you did that. And we still got the same result, which is very telling about how the players view that. So yeah, I don't see how an international flair gets more buy-in from the players. Like I could play in the World Cup. I could play in the Olympics and the tie-in why we're doing this because the All-Star game is going to be played in the afternoon this year.
Yeah.
As a lead into the Olympics on NBC. So, let's just tie these two together. Like, I think we care about the Olympics one of it every 4 years. We care about FIBA for 2 weeks over the summer, 3 weeks over the summer. Like, no, like I don't need that during the regular season. And especially now, like, who's Team USA, right? With no Jason Tatum, no Tyrese Halliburton. So what are we doing there?
I mean, I think ultimately just comes down to American fans and even the players just look at that a little bit different. Like you mentioned, like the FIBA, like we talked about how Giannis felt about playing for Greece in EuroBasket. And I think that's why you see the disconnect of some Bucks fans who don't understand why it's so important for Giannis to do that. Because in America, that's that type of format of basketball where you're playing other countries. Like that's something we only think about come Olympic time. like even in the background going on with all of the different USA teams that are competing, people aren't really tapped into that. Like in America, it's NBA basketball, it's college basketball, and that's about it until the Olympics come around. Then it's get your flags, wave them.
Camille, come on.
All right, well, okay, all right, but that's the point. I just think it's a difference, and ultimately for the All-Star game, I don't see the NBA canceling it because it is a moneymaker, but the product isn't going to be what people remember, even though some nostalgia clouds how bad some old All-Star games was, until the players want to actually compete. And you have certain guys, like we know Giannis, when he get on there, he's always one of those guys who kind of wants to push it. Wemby's also one of those guys we've seen early who's like, I'm coming out here to win. Like I'm treating an All-Star game like a game that I want to win. So I think it's really more so on the players in any other format that Silver can try to throw out there. But this is the last dart to throw at the dartboard here, I think, because I do think the international players are going to have that edge to this game that might just naturally up the competition level for the USA team. But without seeing the rosters, I think I put my money on the international squad right now.
Yeah. And even we've sprinkled in we'll pay the winning team more money. Like, yeah, I get it. It's also not great optics when we're having the 1% discussions. Like this is what drives these players is getting more money. I mean, have like G League teams play and the teams on the players on those teams, you're guaranteed an NBA contract if your team wins. Like something like that is different. But yes, I don't have high expectations for this, which is why, like, look, let's just get more Pablo Torre going up against Mark Cuban, because that in itself, I'll have to check out Locked On Mavs and Locked On Clippers to see this this alliance between Mark Cuban and Steve Ballmer. It's kind of like when Stone Cold and Triple H teamed up and became the tag team champions. Like, what is going on here? But nonetheless, international play is over. Now it's time to shift our sights to the regular season. As we mentioned, 2 weeks from today is Bucks Media Day. 2 weeks from tomorrow is start of training camp. And then we got 3 weeks from today is the first preseason game in Miami against the Heat. So it's all rapidly approaching here. Our over-unders draft, our player profiles and projections and everything else is going to start in earnest now this week. That will do it for today's show. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.